JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, March 19th, 9 a.m. Talk quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. S&P futures kind of mixed open here, flat. They were slightly a little more in green earlier this morning. And yeah, it's Fed day. So will be interesting to see how it plays out. I was talking about yesterday that 563 hand. I wish that had held. Um, and now the scenario that I think would set up probably the most bullish would be some kind of stair stepping action to the upside, right? So we have those two monster sessions on Friday and Monday. We had a little, well, reversed Monday's gains yesterday. And then if we can find some support, and I don't know if it's going to be pre-Fed or after the Fed, I think that'll bode well. On the flip side, if we start to reverse, then you got to think that 540 is going to come and play and much, I would say much lower, but then you're going to have the inklings of a possible, the echoes of a bear market, right? That'll be what folks will be chattering about. But 2 o'clock today, Fed Chair Powell, they'll have the statement, the Fed statement, which 99% probability that there's going to be no rate cut, and then you have his press conference at 2:30. So he's going to have to, I always say walk that tightrope, but I think he's going to have to address the elephant in rooms. And I was saying it last week too, that people are talking about recession. I think it's the U word, the uncertainty word, because if that uncertainty plays out, and the Fed's not ahead of it or what have you, things get then we start talking recession word, right? So they're gonna be talking about a drop. I'm sure they're gonna get peppered with questions around the tariffs, how he responds to them, and I think it probably makes sense for them to at least say we're open to cuts if things get crazy, but we're just gonna hold course. And if it spins a little dovish, I think the markets will do well. So will be nice to see it stair step back up to that 200-day moving average 570.79. Heck, I'll take a close over 563 today. That would be constructive. But then don't want to see a reversal into the red. And probably be some volatility at 2 o'clock, some more volatility at 2:30. I think the statement's probably not going to be as important as the comments, and they always have the dot plot too. So seeing where the Fed expects the rates down the line. So all that's going to be important. During the market hours yesterday, you had the keynote speech by Jensen from NVIDIA. I was saying it yesterday too. It was like just the same buzzwords, right? The generative AI and all these different things. It's like all that stuff's been out there. So I think people are waiting for announcements, something that might open up the addressable market or something to that effect. And it really wasn't much. Uh, but it was 2 hours of what I guess unteleprompted, unscripted presentation. Which the way if you listen, it's impressive. The good thing, I guess, is we don't have a sell the news event, right? We don't have a huge gap on the video on some kind of news, so it's kind of bouncing here, and maybe that will bode well for the market to bounce as well. So that's kind of what I'm watching, and I always try and have a positive spin on the overall market. And you take a look at the VIX, we were down, I think it was 10 or 11% on Friday, another 8% on Monday, and then yesterday was only up 5.8% despite closing lower on Tuesday than we did on Monday. So. Uh, yeah, the VIX, if it's hopefully it's working well as a forward fear indicator, and it's showing that maybe fear is coming out a little bit out of the market. And then the Mag 7, I was down. Meta was down over 3% yesterday, and for the first time this year, all seven are in the red. So despite that, the market, I mean, we're not crazy down. So maybe again another possible silver lining scenario, or if Meta continues to roll, maybe we're in a different scenario altogether. All right, that's kind of overall markets. Send individual names, and I was on the watch list yesterday morning. If Baidu gapped at the open, I was going to close some more of my calls out. It was actually 107 in the pre-market yesterday. Today was a little weakness. It was down to 101 and 60 or what have you. But it opened at 103, 104, got all the way up to 105 quick, and then pulled back. I locked some of the calls out for 400%. I still have a few runners. I was actually looking to get some strikes into next week to play for the move into the 110 plus range, 115. But then it was kind of just melting into the afternoon. So I sat on my hands. I may revisit. I might wait till after the Fed meeting, though, but depending on the strength. If it rallies at the open and gets over 104 after the open, then I might look for some strikes to play for that move over 110. Because I think, it's a play on the I wouldn't call it a recovery in China, but the China market continuing its rally. And I don't think it matters what the U.S. market does. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, because if China markets rally, it's going to go up. If U.S. markets rally and China markets stay flat, it's probably going to go up. So I think it's just a nice play for upside. So don't be surprised if I have more strikes there. I think it's a great story, and it's just I've been waiting for this to really start to break out. And I mean, it started to break out, obviously, especially Monday and Tuesday. But I think it's really to really ready to get to 110, 115, and then maybe beyond. And take a look at the long-term chart. That October area at 115, that'd be the big spot, right? That'd be the big breakout spot because we hit it back in the summer as well. Well, spring into summer. All right, so that's Baidu. And then Intel. So another thing I had on a watch. I was going to close the last of my weekly strikes out, which uh, I didn't want to be in a spot where premium erodes. So all the way up to 26 yesterday, I closed the rest of my calls for some profits. And then I also talked about on the watch. I was going to get some April strikes, got some April strikes on strength. And then sure enough, it's been bumpy. And then this morning, it's selling off down to 25 here in the pre-market, just broke under 25 earlier before 7 a.m. I think it's more of just a function of its 5-day rally. I think some digestion here, similar to its candle it had after its big gap last Thursday, right? So last Thursday had the big gap. I got the calls. Friday consolidation. Then you had a resumption of the move to the upside Monday. Consolidation yesterday. Now we have a little pull. Hopefully, you don't want to see it get under 24.50 or so, but if it holds here at 25, I still think it's going to head up to 28.75 in the coming weeks, fill that gap. Not going to add any strikes here on weakness, despite my calls going to be solidly red. I'll just hold on. So they were solidly red last, well, I think after I got them, they just started to trickle, and then that Friday, they were in the red, and then they came back to life. I was able to sell some for 100% on Monday. All right, so that's Intel. And then some other names I'm watching, and then I'm going to be cautious before 2 o'clock. Doesn't mean I'm not going to add strikes, but XYZ up 1%, 1.7% yesterday. So the picture's continuing to resolve. One of these days, maybe it's going to have a big move. I'll just continue to watch. I just don't want to be in a spot where I do add the calls and reverses, but still watching that one. I was watching DocuSign. That almost looks like it's ready to break back over 90 bucks. Had some weakness Monday, recouped some of the losses yesterday. If that resumes, maybe it gets 85, 86. I don't even know what it is here in the pre-market. Might look to get some strikes there. Yeah, it's like 85 bucks there. Excuse me. Adobe had their summit, having their summit right now, the 18th and 19th in Vegas. That one's been destroyed twice from its earnings. It had it back December, then it had it again here in March. Their numbers weren't actually that bad, I thought, in March, but I guess not good enough. All the way down under 380, bounced a little bit on Friday and Monday, and then gave back some yesterday. And now it looks like it's bouncing a little bit. And you have some analysts coming out with some positive commentary this morning, although lowering their price targets or adjusting them, right? Because they had really high price targets. The stock was 560 bucks in December. So don't be surprised if I add some spec calls on strength. I'll probably wait for 397, 398. If it breaks through that, I'll look for some 405s maybe, because I think that could have a nice follow-through move. I was talking about DELl yesterday afternoon as a sympathy trade on the NVDA GTC. I didn't know he was going to be speaking with Kramer. So, he kind of spun. I mean, we all, unless you've been living in a cave somewhere, there's a huge addressable market on the server side, right? They've been talking about for a while, at least for the last year and a half, this refresh, right? These servers are going to have to get upgrades to be able to handle the demands, the power, all that fun stuff. So, I mean, DELl is front and center, always has been. I mean, look where it is, trading well off its highs. I mean, not saying it's going to rally here, but if it does show some strength, maybe over 98 at the open, I might look for some strikes to play for a move over 100. And then URI. So, I keep watching this one. It's still churning, down about 2% yesterday. It's one of these days going to start to find some footing and bounce. 50-day moving average is up there near 695. So definitely one I'm watching as well. And I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.